If you want to get into hunting in New Zealand and own your own rifle or shotgun for the purpose, then you need a firearms license that's issued by the New Zealand Police. In this video, I'll talk you through the step-by-step process of applying for your first firearms license, a Category A without any endorsements, that will allow you to own, use, and store a rifle or a shotgun for the purpose of hunting without any supervision. Hey everyone, welcome to Huntress. I'm Amy. This video will take you through step by step what you have to do to apply for your first New Zealand firearms license. I'm talking specifically about the most basic firearms license in New Zealand, the Category A, which covers rifles and shotguns for the purpose of hunting and shooting. It does not cover endorsements for prohibited firearms and magazines such as semi-automatic military style weapons or pistols, as it's unlikely that you'll be using any of these to go hunting in New Zealand. This video was filmed in December 2021, so once you get around to filing your application, do make sure you read the detail on the web pages that I link and the application form so you don't miss any updates that have been made since. The process is really slow at the moment to get your first firearms license. The website, I think, predicts about a year of delay, so I suggest as soon as you decide you want to get into hunting and own your own firearm, file the application form, get it in. In the meantime, you are allowed to use firearms under direct supervision of a license holder, but with the delay of around a year, I suggest file it, get it in there, get it done, and that way, hopefully in a year's time, you'll be able to use, store, and own your own rifle or shotgun for hunting. So let me take you to the website and talk you through the application process step by step. So go to any search engine like Google and type in New Zealand Police. And that should take you to their homepage, which is www.police.govtnz. So if we go to that webpage and look at the top toolbar, there's advice and services. Click on that and it will give you a drop-down list. And within that drop-down, you should be able to find firearms and safety. Clicking on that, we get to a really good web page with lots of links to information. I highly recommend that you read through this in your own time in preparation for applying for a license or handling firearms in the future. What we'll be covering here is that I want to apply for a New Zealand firearms license. So let's click on that link. So now we're on the website that will take us through step by step how to apply for a new firearms license. Right at the top, you'll see an important note that right now the approximate processing time for a new license is about 12 months. So get your applications in because it will take you a fair time to get it. So you need to apply for a firearms license if you're 16 years or older and you want to use and own your own firearm without direct supervision. So what I'll be talking about, as I said, is shotguns and rifles used for hunting and target practicing, and I won't be looking at endorsements or prohibited weapons or magazines here. So let's scroll down and go and look at the step 1, complete the application form. So if you click on that link here, it will download a PDF document to your computer. You can either print that off, fill it in by hand and submit it by post, or you can open it in your PDF reader, such as Adobe Acrobat on your computer, and fill it in on there and submit it online. Don't open it in your internet browser and fill it in there because whatever you fill in will not be saved and your answers will be lost. So if I go to my folder of downloads and open the form I've just downloaded, here we go, that's our application form, 35 pages long. So this will take you some time to fill in, so let me quickly run you through what you need so you have an idea what you're up against when you sit down to fill this in. So the first few pages of the application form just give you some background information. Covers who can apply, what you need to do, which is basically what I'm talking you through here, what you need to apply, what kind of documents and photographs, we'll go through that, and what happens after you've submitted your application. Then we get to proof of identity. Now option 1 that's listed here refers to people who are renewing their license, so that doesn't apply to us. If we're applying for a new license, not a renewal, then we have to go to option 2 for a proof of identity. And option 2 lists 3 pieces of information, 3 types of documents that you will have to submit to prove your identity. You will have to submit 1 proof of identity from the list on the left here, So let's say I use my New Zealand driver's license, so I tick that box. You'll need to submit a proof of address dated within the last 3 months. So one of the examples down here, we'll take that. And we need to provide another proof of identity from the list over here on the right. So let's say I'll use my birth certificate, so I'll take that. So these are all documents that you will need to supply. If you're 16 or 17 years of age and you don't have access to these documents, you can get a parent or guardian to provide you with a written declaration to support your application. So don't stress about that. If you are submitting these documents with an online application, then you can scan these documents and submit the scanned copies. If you're submitting your application via post, photocopy your documents and submit the photocopies, not the originals, with your application. The police will come and interview you once your application is being processed, and they will then get the chance to view the original documents. Please don't send them the original documents. Right, then photographs. You also need to submit 2 identical photographs. There's a lot of detail here that shows you what they expect to see when they look at those photographs, and what format they must be in. So follow this down to a T. The best way to do it is to go to a shop that does passport photographs, show them this list of requirements and get them to take 2 identical photographs of you. They can either print them off for you so you can submit them with your handwritten documents via post, or they can email them to you as digital copies so you can submit them online with your application. They won't accept scanned photographs with your application, so it has to be either printed photographs with your application that's submitted via post, or electronic files of your photographs which are submitted with your online application. If you do send in your application via post, don't staple or attach your photographs to the application. Put them in loosely. They don't like them being attached. That's just in the note down here. So make sure you read the details on the application form so you don't make any mistakes and thereby prolong your application process. The next section just talks you through fees. We'll cover that in more detail. You'll actually need to pay a fee before you submit your application and put the receipt in with your application form to have it processed. And it mentions license duration. So as this will be your first firearms license, it will last you for 5 years. Once you renew it, it will last you for 10 years. So next we get into the bulk of the application form. Section A is about license information and endorsements. So as this would be our first license application, we haven't held a license in the past. We're not looking for any endorsements. All we have to tick is, I have never had a firearms license, A1. If you do have a firearms license or you are looking for endorsements, obviously read the rest of this section and fill it in appropriately. Section B, all of your personal information, so that should be simple enough to fill in. You'll need your driver's license handy for this section. And section C looks for your employment and education details. So again, pretty easy to fill in. Section D asks you a couple of questions about your reasons for possessing firearms. Why do you want a firearms license to use a firearm? What's your experience with firearms, if any? Describe if you've used firearms in different gun clubs or in what kind of environments. And if you have any overseas licenses or have had your license refused in the past. The key for any of these questions is don't leave any of the answer fields empty. If you don't have an answer to the question, if it's not applicable to you, write in not applicable or alternatively NA as an abbreviation of that. Don't leave the field open. It will make it seem that you avoided answering the question and they will not process your application. Same with the tick boxes. If there's tick boxes for answers, make sure you click the yes or the no, whichever one applies to you, to make sure that you're answering the question and not leaving it unanswered. Section E is about your personal history. This is where they ask about past criminal convictions. So again, go through all of the tick boxes and click either no or yes, depending on what applies to you. If you've ticked yes to any of the questions, you have to provide an explanation down here and type in your answer. Section F is about health details, so it asks you about your health status. Again, tick all the boxes that apply, provide more details if you answered yes to any of them. Don't leave any of the questions unanswered. If they're not applicable, put in not applicable. And always make sure to tick one or the other box for any of the questions. Now, they also want information about your health practitioner. They want the name and contact detail because it is possible that they may inform your health practitioner about the fact that you've applied for a firearms license. Section G gets into the referee section, so you'll need several referees. And the key thing to note about all your referees for your firearms license is they must be willing to be interviewed by the police to talk about, if you're a suitable person for owning and handling a firearm. So referee number 1 is your next of kin. If you have a current spouse or partner, that must be your next of kin. But if you're 16 or 17, it should be your parent or legal guardian. So you need to fill in their contact details and provide some information about what your relationship is with this person. Referee number 2 has to be an unrelated person. There's a few criteria for this referee, so make sure you read this in detail. They have to be at least 20 years old. You must have had regular face-to-face contact with them for a long period of time, so at least 3 years. And they should know you well enough to be able to answer questions about your character and your fitness to possess firearms. They cannot be your current or former spouse or partner. Again, you provide contact details for them and describe your relationship with them. Section I is about your former spouse or former partner. If you had a different spouse or partner in the last 5 years, then you have to provide details about them and your relationship with them. Section J is for those applicants that are 16 or 17 who have to provide information about their parent or guardian. So they fill in the relevant information here. So that was your referees. In Section K, we're looking at security arrangements. So the police has certain requirements for how you store your firearms to protect them from theft, stopping children from accessing them, and they're meant to stop people from using the firearm if they have access to it. So your ammunition needs to be stored separately or the firearm needs to be disabled. So have a read of the firearms secure storage guidance before you fill in the section, and then answer the questions in here about how you would store firearms. Now, this will be inspected when the police come and interview you to make sure that the storage facilities meet all of the requirements. The next question is about who has access to the firearm storage location. So if you have flatmates or family members who have access to the house or the location where the firearm is stored, they want to know details about these people. And there's space for 6 people that would have access to that storage location in their application form. Here you have associated person 1, 2, and 3, and you answer questions about them, their contact details, and why and how they would have access to the space where the firearm is stored. And then at the end of the application, there's space for persons 4, 5, and 6 if you need to add to that list. That's almost it. Section M is a checklist. Make sure you work your way through the checklist and make sure that you have all the right documents together, that you've ticked all the boxes, that you've filled in all the spaces for your answers or typed in not applicable, so nobody can think that you left a question unanswered and delay the processing of your application. Section N is your declaration. Tick the boxes, date the application, add your signature. And then we get to the section that allows you to add those additional people, the persons 4, 5, and 6 that have access to your firearm storage location. And then there's 2 pages at the very end of the application where you can add further notes. If you ran out of space to answer any of the questions earlier on in the application, you can use the additional comments section, section P, to add in additional information to support your application. And that's it. 35 pages. So now that we've completed step 1, which is the application form, you should have either printed it, filled it in by hand, or filled it in on your PDF reader and saved it to your computer. We'll move on to step 2, which is pay your application fee. So before you submit your application, you have to go to a New Zealand Post shop where you can pay bills and tell them how much you have to pay for your firearms license, which right now for a new license is $126.50. So here's a nice little search tool that's quite handy. If you click on that and filter for locations where you can pay a bill, it will show you which New Zealand Post shops in your area you can go to pay for this. And keep the receipt, because that is what you will have to submit with your application as proof of payment. Step number 3 is getting your recent passport photos done. As said, the best way to do this is to go into a shop that takes passport photographs and either have them printed out for your submission by post, or have them emailed to you or downloaded for you onto a memory stick that you bring along, so you can upload them and submit your application online. Remember, you can't scan photographs for your application. They need to be printed photographs for your postal submission or digital photographs for your online submission. So last but not least, you need to assemble your application and make sure you have all relevant documents together. So submit a photo or a scan of the receipt of your application fee, your passport photos, your 3 types of documents for proof of identification, and your filled in application form. And then upload those documents online, or send them in to your national support team, or even hand them in at your local police station. Now, if you have any questions about the process while you're going through it, you can either call the police on their non-emergency number on 105, or you can contact your local firearms office. There's a nice handy link here for your local firearms office, and that gives you the location, opening hours, and phone numbers, and even an email address for those.
So no matter if you've filed your application already or you're just starting to use firearms under supervision, you should familiarize yourself with the arms code and safe practices for people who use firearms or who go hunting. Using firearms comes with a lot of risk, and it comes with a responsibility to make sure that you know how to use them safely, protect yourself and protect others around you. If you have applied for your license, you will be tested on this knowledge. Once the police has decided to progress your application to the next step, they will send you a letter and invite you to a firearms safety course. Now, that course is run across the country by the New Zealand Mountain Safety Council. It's a 3.5-hour course, and it starts with a 30 multiple choice question test that will test your knowledge on the arms code, safety practices and legislation relating to the use of firearms in New Zealand. It will then take you through hands-on safe handling practices for the most commonly used rifles and shotguns for hunting and shooting in New Zealand. And if you failed the first test at the start of the course, you are allowed to retake it at the end. If you fail the second time, it's up to the police to decide what to do with your application. If you pass, the New Zealand Mountain Safety Council will inform the police that you attended the training, that you passed the test, what your result was, and the police will then decide to progress your application to the next step, come and see you for an interview, look at your storage facility for your firearms, and interview your referees. And at the end of all of this, you will hopefully be issued with a New Zealand firearms license. Now, I wish you best of luck. I have my fingers crossed for you that your application process won't take a year. Please do make sure that you don't miss out any detail in your application form that will hold up the application process. Make sure you tick all of those boxes, fill in every answer space that there is, and file everything the way they ask for in the application form. And prep for those questions in the multiple choice test. It would be a pity if you failed twice and had to wait even longer to get your license. So good luck, and I hope you found this video useful. If you've undergone the process recently and applied for your first firearms license and you experienced something somewhat differently to what I've talked you through here, do leave a comment down below and share your experience with us. That would be great. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.